Hello and welcome to Cooking the Books with Heather. Today we are continuing to use up all of our squash and we are going to be making grilled squash, basil pesto, and stewed tomatoes from Vivian Howard's Deep Run Roots. Um, Today we're probably just making the pesto part because we can make this ahead of time and that's what we're going to do. I have a ton of pesto still in the freezer, but this recipe is a little bit different. Um, So we're going to use this particular one. So let's just get started. Have a food processor and we have a lot of basil. I haven't measured it out yet, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to kind of pack my measuring cup full because it takes up a lot of space right now, but it won't once it's all processed up. This is more than we're going to need, and whatever's left I am going to just dry for wintertime use. So, okay, that's one. It smells very much like a licoricey basil scent currently. We're going to call that good. I'm also a little bit disorganized today because I just decided I was going to do this. So, trying to get it done. This recipe has some mint in it as well. I have a ton of mint growing. You should probably never plant mint in the ground. I don't remember doing so, but apparently at some point I did. And now we can't get rid of it. But that's okay. We're able to contain it decently well, which is fine. Look at that one. All right, we're gonna call that good. All right, so we have our herbs in here. What else? Oh, pine nuts. These are just straight. She doesn't say to toast them, so I didn't. And then we also put some salt in here. There we go. That'll be fine. And Parmesan. I'm not going to measure this. I guesstimated. It's fine. And we're going to pulse this a few times to get it all sort of broken up. I'm going to call that good for now. I've measured some honey, so I'm going to get that in here. Good enough. All right. I need to zest and juice some lemons, which I have not done ahead of time, but I will do now. I got this juicer recently and I kept forgetting I had it, but I used it last night and I really like it, so we're going to use that. Does a good job. Finally, I need to measure some olive oil. Not a liquid measuring cup, but it's the same and it'll be fine. She says to use olive oil for finishing. This is the olive oil I have. This is the olive oil I'm using. So, there we go. She says to blend this all for about 30 seconds. Not long enough for your machine to make everything heat up. That was about 15. I'm going to check it because it looks like it might be good. Just make sure. I mean, I'll give it a few more. This is a pretty thin pesto. that was about 30 seconds. We're going to call that good. And before I go through all of this mess, we're going to just transfer this into a container, put it in the refrigerator, and she says this will last for up to a month in the refrigerator, especially if you make sure there's at least a thin layer of olive oil on top. So you might want to add a little extra olive oil on top. That will keep it from going brown on top. So I'm going to scrape everything down into this and put it into a container, and we will see you probably tomorrow for the rest of this process. Yesterday we made the basil pesto, and that's still in the fridge. We're ready to grill our squash. So she says you can use patty pans that you cut into sixths. I don't have those. I have my yellow and green zucchini. So those have been sliced into approximately 1-inch pieces. And we're going to either grill these, which is what we're going to do, on medium high, or you can cook them on a cast iron skillet, also medium high. The goal for these is for them to be a little bit seared, a little bit browned on the outside, but not soggy. So good luck to us. But before we do that, we need to coat them in some olive oil, season with some salt and pepper, and that's about it. So I'm going to measure it. Hopefully there's enough in here. If not, I have more. Perfect. All right, so we've got our olive oil in here, some salt, and you want to do this right before you cook it, because otherwise it will draw out the moisture and it won't brown and all that kind of stuff. So we don't want to leave this for very long after we salt it. And now pepper, I'm just going to guesstimate the amount. That's good. That's plenty. And we're just gonna toss it. I did cut these up a while ago, but didn't salt them first. Oops. Just want to get them coated with the salt, pepper, and oil so we can take these out and grill them. Now, when we come back, we're going to be adding the pesto, and we're also going to be using some stewed tomatoes. We're going to be serving this on a bed of stewed tomatoes, and there's a recipe that we've already made for stewed tomatoes in the same book. I'll link that up there. I don't have any right now, so I'm taking a shortcut and just going to use a can of them. She says you should serve these like at room temperature generally. I feel weird about not heating this up, so I might heat it up a little bit before I put it on the plate. But anyway, we're going to go out to the grill and grill these up, and when we're done, we're going to put them on a rack on a sheet pan to cool and not get soggy. That's the goal. We'll see. All right. It is raining. We'll show you a little bit of the grilling process, but I don't want to set up the camera and, let it get all wet. But I can't complain about the rain because we really need it. Okay. It's raining. I'm going to get these on the grill. My grill guy says it's very hot. So we're going for direct heat. And I'm going to try to get these cooked in about 3 minutes per side. So, good luck to me. Okay, 3 minutes. Been about 3 minutes, so we're going to see what we're looking like. We're getting some color. That's good. Not a lot of color, but some. I don't know about that. I don't know. That one's good. Some of them are a little better than others. I bet. It's over there. think it's a little hotter over here, so you might have to, adjust your positioning based on your heat. So we're gonna let these go for another 3 minutes. Some of them I might move to a hot space to get a little bit more char on them, but we'll see. We don't want them to overcook. So be back in about 3 minutes to take them off. About 3 more minutes. So I'm going to take up the ones that look like they've got a good amount of sear, put them on my cooling rack. The ones that I think need a little more time, we'll leave on. But since we want these to be kind of cool for our, for serving, we can let these sit, no problem, while we wait for the rest to cook. Just trying to get a little bit of sear on both sides. Calling them all cooked enough, even though some of them didn't get quite as much sear as I would have liked, but I don't want them to be soggy. So we're going to go inside and plate it up. Brought our squash inside. I have heated up the stewed tomatoes kind of briefly, just a little warm. So I'm going to get those. I'm going to put them on this serving platter to kind of cool off a little bit. I know it seems weird. It just felt right to me. So we're just going to make a puddle of this. Smells good. I looked at the ingredients and it seemed like they were similar to the ones that we made, so I'm sure it'll be fine. So we're going to put this over here. Our squash is still kind of warm, but we want to go ahead and serve them. So we did a pretty good job of keeping them not soggy, most of them. So we're going to toss them. I just wiped this bowl out. It's the same bowl I tossed them in with the oil before we cooked them. I just kind of wiped out the extra liquid. And we're going to toss these with some of the pesto that we made yesterday. You can, of course, use any pesto you like. This one had some honey in it, which is not usual for me, but it also didn't have any garlic in it, so I went ahead and made pesto like that. It was pretty runny when we made it, whereas it's not so much right now. I'm gonna measure it because, you know, she says to. So I just want to get those all kind of covered in the pesto. You can use more or less, depending on what you like. This seems to cover them nicely. And then I'm going to sort of arrange them on top of the tomatoes. The pesto kind of covers up the places that we didn't get as good of a char as I wanted. There we go. I'm just going to drizzle the rest of this stuff that's sort of in my bowl on top. And there's two more things. So I didn't pre-do this or pre-measure it, but we're just going to shave some Parmesan cheese on top using my vegetable peeler. can do this with your heart. That looks good to me. And then she says to use aged balsamic vinegar. This is what I got. So this is what we're going to use. And I'm going to measure it and drizzle, like she says. Seems like a lot, but I'm pretty sure she would not actually measure this. She would probably just drizzle it from the bottle. But we have measured, and that is it. So we will, well, we're going to have dinner. We're going to try it, and we'll be back in just a minute to let you know what we think. On this episode of Cooking the Books with Heather, you watched me make grilled squash, basil pesto, and stewed tomatoes from Vivian Howard's Deep Run Roots. We've been cooking out of this book for a long time, but it is really thick, and we happen to have a very good garden this year that provided us with a lot of squash. So I think this was a really good combination. The tomatoes and the squash go nicely together. I'm sure the tomatoes would have been better if I used the ones from this book, which I have made before, but I did not have readily available to me at the time. And in fact, my tomatoes hadn't yet started to ripen, which they have now, as you may have noticed. But my squash is done. So, next year we'll see if we can sort of time those together better and do it all exactly the way she likes in the book. But either way, I think it was a good way to sort of jazz up the grilled squash, which we make a lot, just sort of plain. Add a few things to it, makes it a little bit different. The basil pesto here has a lot of lemon in it, and it did stay green in the refrigerator for a really long time. We're coming up to the end of the time that she says you should keep it in the refrigerator. So if we have any left, I still have a little bit left. We were on vacation, so we didn't end up using it all up. But it did last a pretty long time. Did not turn immediately brown like a lot of them. And I don't know if that's because of the lemon juice. Whatever, it was really good. I will freeze anything that I have left. Sort of, I'll see if I can use it up this week, and if not, I'll freeze whatever I have left. But yeah, it was all really good. It was a great way to jazz up that grilled squash when you are just getting sick of squash in the middle of the summer. So if you've enjoyed watching me make this, please give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and come back and watch me make something else next week.